Naira et al. In 2013 said that groundwater make up 20% of the world's supply, and wells are one of the major sources of groundwater in many places. It provides sources of irrigation and drinking, and also they are used by industry. Now, I would like to add that wells can either be piped into a house or a facility, or they can be left unpiped and be accessed directly. So there are different methods of collecting samples from these wells depending on whether they are piped or they are not piped. And if it's in the situation where they are piped, Ms. Anu already talked about collecting water sample from the tap. But let me go again to say that it's essential that we use sterile sampling bottles. For example, there are glass sample bottles which can be washed and autoclaved in order to keep sterile and wrapped in aluminum foil, while some plastic bottles can be washed and sterilized in chlorine solution, and the residual is neutralized by aqueous sodium thiosulfate solution. So some companies also produce their own sterile bottles for sample collection. Now, how do we collect sample from a tap? First of all, we must use a tap that frequently used, not a tap that is rarely used. So, if you want to collect sample from a piped well using a tap or a faucet, we must open the tap that is regularly used in that household or in that facility. Then, before we start our sample collection, we should ensure that we wipe the tap with probably a clean napkin or hypochlorite solution, or you can also use an alcohol wipe to wipe the metal tap. But if it is a plastic tap, all this can be used. But for a metal tap, we can also use dry heat to sterilize the mouth of the tap where water was collected from. And if there is a filter, the filter should be removed before we place our bottle at the mouth of the sample of the tap. But before we collect our water from the tap, we must ensure that we leave the water in about 5 to 10 minutes in order to remove stagnant water that might be in the pipe, and so that we'll be able to get a fresh water from the source. Then we should then reduce the flow of the water to a steady flow to minimize air bubbles and disturbance. Then we carefully open our sterile sample bottle and ensure that the cap is held facing down. Then collect our water sample. We should then collect it to the level, to the mark, just like doctor has just said now that it should be for DOD, the bottle will be filled to the brim, but for other purposes, the bottle doesn't need to be filled to the brim, just to ensure that when a sample is extracted from the bottle, we can shake together and ensure that we'll be able to get an adequate representation of the microorganism inside the sample bottle. Then we screw the cap and label the sample bottle immediately. It should be labeled properly, stating the date, the time, and possibly the point where the collection was done. Then the sample should be transported immediately to the lab for analysis. But in the case that the sample cannot reach the lab on that day, it can be kept in the refrigerator, but it must be analyzed within 30 hours of collection. Also, now for a open well or a well without a pump or without a piping into the facility, we can either use a sample baler or a sterilized bottle with a weight at the base to extract or to get our sample from the well. So if we are using sample baler, a baler is a portable grab sampler typically used for retrieving groundwater from monitoring wells. So a baler is attached to a baling cord and lowered slowly and gently into the well until the top of the baler is below the groundwater surface. The baler is pulled up, and when the desired depth is reached, they are pulled out again. They are simple to use and they are relatively inexpensive. But one wants to use the other method, which is using a sampling bottle that we have to attach a weight to it. That maybe we can tie a stone or rock around the bottle. Then we use another rope to tie to a stick and carefully the bottle and slowly lower the bottle into the well. So the weight will help to pull the bottle down into the well in order to be able to collect the sample, and then we'll withdraw the rope gradually and then cover sample bottle. So the bottle must be filled to the desired level and any surface form must be avoided. The bottle is capped securely then without contaminating the opening, that is the cover. These are the things to note when we want to collect our samples. Sample bottle must be properly labeled by specifying the date and the time of collection and also the well's location. Sufficient volume of water is essential to perform necessary tests, usually at least 100 ml of water. Contamination should be avoided, so we must also sterilize our hands. We must wash our hands and wear protective gloves when we want to collect our samples. Then we should also store the sample properly. We can store it in a ice box, or we can keep it in the refrigerator till before we are able to transport it, which usually should be between 24 hours after collection. And this is all that I have to say on this topic. Thank you for listening. These are the references.
Yeah, I thank you for your presentation. I have one or two questions. You are talking about a sample from the well.
Yes, sir.
From the well. Is that not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You said you talk about weight on the bottle.
Yes, sir.
Why do you need to put weight on the bottle? Why?
In order for the bottle to be able to go smoothly into the water, into the well, the weight will pull down the bottle below the surface of the water to be able to extract the sample.
Okay. You talk about used well and well that is not used.
Sir? I said a tap, for example, is not every tap in a house that is used frequently. Some taps are used more frequently than others. So it is essential to collect our samples from a tap that is frequently used, because the one that is not frequently used have collected dust from other things.
Your presentation is on how to collect sample from the well. So why are you talking about tap?
That's why I said that. I said in the beginning that a well would be connected to a pump, and the sample will have to be collected from the tap. For in some countries where they do not fetch water directly from the well,
okay,
and the well is piped out.
Okay, that's understood. Now you talk about removing filter from the tap. Why are you removing filter from the tap?
If the filter is at the mouth of the tap, we will not be able to get an adequate sample of the water that we want. For example, now it's not just microorganisms that water can be tested for. It can be tested for inorganic chemicals. So we want to be sure that the water that is coming into the house doesn't have seepage of inorganic compounds into the water. So the filter is removed in order to be able to have an accurate sample that wants to know what is really inside the well, or whether the well is still a potable water or is still good for consumption.
Okay. Have you heard about clean catch before? Clean catch. If you are collecting, if you connect a tap to the well, have you heard the word clean catch?
No, sir.
So if you are taking from the tap, is it immediately you open the tap, you just put your bottle there and start taking it, or you let it run for some time?
No, sir. Yes, sir. You will allow it to run for some time before
That,
we put, then
that
we
is
reduce the volume
that
of
is
the
what
tap.
that is what is called clean catch.
Okay, sir.
That's what is called clean catch because microorganism in the air can attach to the surface of the tap. So when you come, you open and you start taking your, so all the microorganisms in the air that have, or the air particles that have attached to the mouth of the tap, that is what you are going to be collecting. So when you have clean catch, you let the water flush anything down first before you now put your sample bottle. The same thing applies to urine sample in hospitals. So it's advisable to use clean catch of urine. So it's not the first urine that the patient produces that you take. You let it run for some time before you now take your sample. That's what is referred to as clean catch. So thank you for your presentation. Do you have any other question for her, please? Okay, if there's no question,